And then before we wrap up the episode, we have our Week 14 picks. Like we said with the conference championship game picks, we are recording earlier in the week, so these lines are subject to change. But starting things off, Thursday night, maybe the best game of the week. You've got Cowboys at Lions. The Lions are 3-point home favorites with a 53.5-point over-under, the highest projected point total of the season. Brain, who you taking?
Yeah, these teams are trended in really opposite directions right now. The Cowboys are starting to get hot. The Lions are a little bit shaky. Um, but I'm going to go with the Cowboys actually to pull off the upset here. I want to take Dallas by a score of 24-20. I think we're in for a sneaky low-scoring affair relative to the point total in this one. So I think the under hits by a comfortable margin.
Yeah, Dallas has been much better at stopping the run since acquiring Quinnen Williams, but they still cannot stop the pass. Mahomes just threw for 4 touchdowns against them on Thanksgiving. I think the Lions can do just enough offensively to squeak this one out. So I will take them to win. And being a 3-point line, I hate that. If I had to pick one direction, I would probably say the Lions cover. I will take the under, though, at 53.5 points. I will say 28-24 in favor of Detroit. And then moving to Sunday, Commanders at the Vikings. Minnesota is a 1.5-point home favorite with a 41.5-point over-under grade.
Yeah, this is a battle of a team that can't stop anybody versus a team that can't move the ball whatsoever. The Vikings should have J.J. McCarthy back, which apparently is somehow a good thing after watching Max Brosmer on Sunday throw 4 interceptions. The Commanders just took the Broncos down to the wire, like it seems like every team does. They lost by 1, failing a 2-point conversion in OT. They'll get Jaden Daniels back most likely. I think that'll be probably helpful, although Mariota's looked pretty good filling in for Daniels so far. I'll take the Commanders regardless of who plays at quarterback. So obviously they're going to cover if I'm taking them outright. I'll go with a final score of 26-17, so the over will slightly hit.
Yeah, even if Jaden Daniels doesn't play in this game, Marcus Mariota is going to be the best quarterback in the game. I'm not picking the Vikings to beat anybody right now. They have looked absolutely atrocious. You mentioned that 4 interception game this past weekend against Seattle. I will take Washington to win outright, and I'll take the under in a 24-17 road victory. And this will be my best bet of the week for Week 14. Then we have Seahawks at Falcons. Seattle is a 7.5-point road favorite with a 43.5-point over-under. Who do you like?
I can't justify laying 7 points on the road here. Yes, the Falcons have struggled. They obviously just lost to the Jets on a walk-off field goal by Nick Folk. But 7 points is a lot for a team on the road that really has one option in the passing game. So I think the Falcons, if they can play similar defense to what the Vikings did this last week against JSN, their offense surely cannot be worse than the Vikings was on Sunday. I think they'll keep this game close. I think Seattle still wins, but I think the Falcons cover. I will go with a final score of 23-20. So if you're taking the over, you're going to get hooked at 43.5.
Yeah, and I know last week we said we had differing opinions on the legitimacy of the Seahawks. I'm of the opinion that they are very legit, so I am undoubtedly picking them to beat the team that just lost to the post-trade deadline Jets on Sunday. I will take Seattle to win and to cover, and I will take the over with a 27-17 Seattle victory. Up next, Bengals at the Bills. Bills are 6-point home favorites with another very high over-under of 52.5 points. Brayden, who do you like here?
Yeah, the Bengals looked all around phenomenal last week with Joe Burrow coming back. The defense actually looked great too, which was the weird part because they have not looked great all season. And I don't know whether to chalk it up to Lamar and the rest of the Ravens offense just playing like shit, or if the Bengals defense has actually figured something out. I think this week's a good litmus test for that. With that being said, I think Buffalo steamrolls in this one. I'm going to go with the Bills by a score of 35-20 here.
James Cook is this week's 20-plus point fantasy guarantee. Last week it was Derrick Henry. He did not get it. I will touch on that when we get to the Ravens game. I'm not happy about it, but James Cook is this week's pick for that. The Bills are such a weird team. They beat the Chiefs, but then lost to the Falcons and the Dolphins. The Bengals are also an extremely weird team. Their defense forced 5 turnovers against the the Ravens last week randomly. I don't see that happening again. I will take the Bills to win. I will take the Bengals to cover. And in a 52.5-point over-under, I will say the over hits in a 30-27 victory for the Bills. Up next, we are blessed to announce the Week 14 shit stain of the week, the Titans at the Browns. The Browns are 4.5 point road favorites with, get this, a 33.5 point over under. That is comfortably the lowest projected point total of the season. So we have the highest and lowest projected win totals of the season this week. Braden, who wins this shit stain of a game?
Yeah, I think it's fitting that the Browns are involved in the shit stain of the week. I'm going to go with the Browns in this one by a score of 13-10. Somehow I think that 33.5 is still too high of a line for this game. We're going to be in for some peak Big Ten West football in this one. Think like Iowa, Minnesota from whatever year that was. I think it was 2022 or 2023, where the line was like 29.5 for that game. And I think it still went under. Yeah, I think that's what we're due for in this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Browns defense will be enough to win this game. It legitimately could just be a first team to score wins type of game. So even with the 33.5 point total, I'm going to take the under. I will take the Browns to win. I'll take the Titans to cover. I'll say 13-10 as my final score.
Good wavelength between us.
Yeah, look at that. And then following up the Week 14 shit stain of the week, we have the Week 14 check your pants after you fart game of the week between the Miami Dolphins and the New York Jets. The Dolphins are 2.5 point road favorites with a 40.5 point over under, Braden.
The Jets' offense has looked surprisingly somewhat competent with an actual quarterback under center. If you can call Tyrod Taylor that. I think the Jets pull this one out, make it back-to-back wins over a couple of other bad teams. I'm going to go with the final score of Jets 26, Dolphins 24. So I will take the over in this one, and I will take the Jets to cover, obviously, as 2.5 point dogs.
Yeah, I don't know. The Dolphins have been kind of rolling the last few weeks. They're winners of 3 straight games. Their defense has really been the difference in doing so. They have not allowed more than 17 points in any of those 3 games. Going against a banged up, bad Jets team, I think they keep the winning streak alive. So I will take the Dolphins to win and cover, and I'll take the over just narrowly in a 24-17 Dolphins victory. Up next is a NFC South battle between the Saints and the Bucks. Tampa Bay 8.5 point home favorites with a 42.5 point over under. Braden, who wins this one?
Yeah, the Saints' offense really has been somehow even worse after going from Spencer Rattler to Tyler Shuck. I think it's pretty clear that the franchise quarterback is not currently on the roster. With that being said, the Buccaneers, as banged up as they are, getting Bucky Irving last week was a nice boost for them. I will take Tampa in this one by a final score of 27-13.
Yeah, and as shaky as the Bucks defense has been in recent weeks, they were pretty solid last week against Arizona, and the Saints offense is just not good. I don't see Tampa Bay having a whole lot of issues this week. I think they win. I will take the Saints to cover the 8.5. That's just kind of a tricky line. And I will say the over hits as well with a final score of 27-20 in favor of Tampa Bay. In AFC, we go from an NFC South battle to an AFC South battle. The Colts at the Jags. Indy is a 1.5 point road favorite with a 48.5 point over under, Braden.
I'm going to take the Jags in this one. I know you and I have different opinions about the Jags, just like we do with the Seahawks. I still am not fully bought in on Jacksonville, but I think they're good enough to win this one at home. I would probably have them as the 1.5 point favorites as opposed to the Colts. So I'll go with the final score of 30-24 Jacksonville. So the over will hit by a couple points.
Yeah, the Colts need a win really badly in this one to beat the fraud allegations. Their offense has kind of struggled the last couple of weeks against pretty good defenses in Kansas City and Houston. I think this week is where they get things back on track. I was very, very vocal last week about how I think the Jags are fraudulent. I'm sticking with that narrative. Colts win and cover, and the under just barely hits in a 28-20 win for the Colts. Up next, we have an AFC North battle between the Steelers and the Ravens. Baltimore 6 point home favorites with a 43.5 point over under, Braden.
Yeah, the Steelers' offense has forgotten to play football, and the Ravens' offense has somehow been even worse for the most part the last couple of weeks. I think the Ravens are more likely to get back on track. I'll go Baltimore by a score of 24-10 in this one. On the bright side for the Steelers, you now have 35-year-old Adam Thielen to fill out your wide receiver core. So thank goodness for that, Pittsburgh.
Yeah, That's the missing piece right there is 35-year-old Adam Thielen. Just add to that old ass team in
Right.
Pittsburgh.
I'm glad he's getting to play with a Super Bowl contender like he wanted to.
Yeah, yeah, worked out really well for him. I mentioned Derrick Henry was my 20 plus fantasy point guarantee last week. I'm thinking this is a bad Cincinnati defense. The Ravens will be up for majority of the game. He'll get like 20, 25 carries. Then he goes out and gets 11 total touches. And in 11 touches, still had 17.7 fantasy points. If he had 15 touches in this game, he gets 20 points. So I am not happy about it. But I digress. It was a bad day for the Steelers on Sunday. Aaron Rodgers got hurt again. There were fire Tomlin chants in Pittsburgh. The Ravens will also be coming off of a mini bye in what is a must-win game for both teams, sitting at 6-6. I think they'll be ready to go on Sunday. I will take them to win and cover as they win a 24-17 game, so the under would hit there as well. Moving from the AFC North to the AFC West, we have the Broncos at the Raiders. Denver is a 7.5-point road favorite with a 40.5-point over-under. Who gets it done, Braden?
This is my best bet of the week. I'm going to take the Raiders plus 7.5. It is extremely gross, but Denver is just allergic to blowing teams out that they should blow out. You have close games against the Giants, the Commanders. Basically, everybody they play them close. They play down to the level of their competition. They play up to the level of their competition. The Raiders suck. They don't suck 7.5 points more at their home field. So I will take the Broncos to win outright, but the Raiders to cover. Final score of 23-20 Denver. Probably a last-second field goal or some shenanigan like that. So we'll take the over in this one by a little bit.
Yeah, this is record-wise, one of the best teams in the NFL versus one of the worst teams. Denver did, though, just sticking with your close win theme, they barely beat the Raiders on Thursday Night Football about a month ago. I think their offense will look slightly better this time around, but not much better to the point where I think they cover. I will take the Raiders to cover as well. If I'm Denver, I'm just putting Patrick Surtain on Brock Bowers the entire game and make somebody else beat you. I don't see that happening, so I will take Denver to win, the Raiders to cover in a 20-14 game, which in turn would also lead to the under hitting. Moving from the AFC to a battle of NFC heavyweights, we have the Bears at the Packers. Green Bay 6.5-point home favorites with a 44.5-point over under. Who wins this one, Braden?
This spread just screams trap line. Just looking at the records, you'd think the Bears are probably a slight underdog on the road, maybe 2 to 3 point road underdog, but 6.5. Vegas knows something. I think it's the Bears are due for some type of course correction. So as good as the Bears have been, I mean, you got to give them their flowers for the win over the Eagles. That took them partially off fraud watch for me. I still think the Packers are better, so I'm going to go with the Packers to win this one and cover. I'm going to take the final score of 31-17 Green Bay. I think Jordan Love looked great last week. I expect him to look great against a worse defense this week in Chicago. So we'll take the over in this game as well.
And it's weird to say, but if the playoffs started right now, the Bears would have a first round bye, which coming into the year you would have never said. Last week we picked against both of these teams. Both of them won. I think the Packers offense found something last week with the deep ball that could give the Bears some problems. I expect a lot of play action shots to go along with a lot of Josh Jacobs in this one for Green Bay. I think the Bears will score, but not quite enough. I'm going to take the Packers to win. I do think the Bears cover. I hear what you're saying about the trap line. I think the Bears deserve a little more credit. But I will take the over as well in a 27-23 victory for Green Bay. Up next, the Rams at the Cardinals. Rams are coming off a very disappointing loss to the Panthers last week, but are 7.5-point road favorites with a 48.5-point over-under, Braden.
Yeah, I think last week was a wake-up call for the Rams. I did think the Panthers would keep it close. I didn't think they'd upset the Rams. But this week, I think the Rams correct course. I'll take LA by a score of 34-20.
Yeah, I don't see them losing twice in a row. I think their defensive front is going to be able to get a lot of pressure on Jacoby Brissett. And on the flip side, I think they score 30 plus in this game. I don't think Arizona's defense is going to cause them much problems. I will take the Rams to get back on track, win and cover. I will say 31-17 in favor of LA, with the under just barely hitting in that score. Then moving to the Sunday night game, we have the Texans, who are red hot, taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. KC is a 3.5 point home favorite with a 41.5 point over.
Yeah, it's tough to pick against Patrick Mahomes, but the Texans are hitting hot at the right time. The Chiefs are kind of just treading water. I think the Texans get this one done on the road, pull off the little bit of an upset. I will go Houston by a final score of 25-21. So the Texans obviously cover as a dog, and the over hits in this one.
Yeah, and I mean, Houston's, like you said, they're red hot, and I mean, they've beaten the Bills and the Colts in back-to-back weeks. I didn't think Dallas could beat Kansas City, but they did. I'm going to stick with Houston to stay hot in a pretty low-scoring game. I will take them to win outright, and the under hits in a 20-17 final score in this one. And then Monday night we have the Eagles at the Chargers. Eagles are 2.5 point road favorites with a 40.5 point over under. Who wins this one, Braden?
Yeah, this spread has to assume that Justin Herbert is going to miss this game. I would think if Herbert was expected to play, we would have the Chargers be favored in this one. So, given that, I'm going to chalk this up as a Trey Lance game, and I think the Eagles will win this one. Their offense has been pretty subpar the last few weeks, so I think it'll be a low-scoring affair. I will go with the Eagles 20, the Chargers 10, so the Eagles cover and the under hits.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Herbert stuff. Just had hand surgery on his non-throwing hand yesterday, I believe. He's listed as day to day. So they're not ruling it out for this week. I'm gonna go under the impression that he is playing. Just as a little different perspective, I guess. The Eagles are coming off of back-to-back frustrating losses now, against Dallas and Chicago. The offense has not looked great over the last 6 quarters of football. I think they get things back on track, though. I'm going to say it's another low-scoring primetime game this week as the Eagles win. I do think they cover the 2.5 points, and I will say the under hits in a 21-17 win for the Eagles.